Hello, everyone. Okay, thank you, Samik. Okay. So today, as we have already had one demo session where we discussed about what is this data science, data AI, and everything. Today also we'll just repeat with this because some people have this particular query. So we'll start with the data science. That what exactly is the data science? And let me introduce myself first. My name is Sahil Garg. I'm a data engineering mentor for you guys, having experience of around 6 to 7 years at least, which includes data science and data analyst as well. So I'll be definitely be able to help you out how these three different branches we have and how they will be helping you, how you can choose your particular career. Shall we get started? And if you guys have any questions, do let me know in between. Let's get started. Now, starting with what is this data science? Okay, coming to the job part as data scientist, data analyst, data engineer is a different aspect. But we'll be starting with this. What is this data science branch itself? Okay, so when you talk about the term as data science, now what comes to our mind when we learn about this term or when we heard about this term? What comes to our mind? What is this data science? What is this term as data science? Can anyone tell me? Now, whenever we talk about data science as a term, it simply refers to when you're able to analyze the data and when you're able to get insights from the data. That is what we refer to as data science. Whenever you, with the help of data, you're able to analyze it, that is all we call it as a data science. To get some insights from the data is all we have as a data science, nothing else. Basic, simple definition. When you're able to analyze and get some useful insights, which you can use for any purpose, is what we call it as a data science. Now, data science refers to two terms, data and science. So obviously data refers to information. Now that information can be anything and in any form. Now it can be a text file, it can be a PDF file, it can be image, it can be video, it can be audio, it can be anything. Everything refers to a data which holds a useful information. Okay, anything which holds a useful information, that is what we call it as a data. Second thing we have is a science. So the way you are analyzing this data, that useful data which we talked about, the way you are analyzing it is what we refer to that science part. And whenever we talk about data science, it refers to three main branches. It can be divided into three main branches. First, we have is data analysis or data analyst. Second, we have is data engineers. And thirdly, we have is data scientists. Now, who are they? What exactly do they do? We'll be learning about all of this. Okay. Now, talking about data. Okay. Let's understand this with an example. That would give you a much better understanding of all these terms. But giving you with a very basic definition, the data analyst is a person who is doing the data science job with the help of tools. So, a differentiating factor over here is the BI tools. So person who is using BI tools to analyze the data, to get insights from the data is what we call as a data analyst or data analysis. When you talk about data scientist, he is a person who uses a AI, who creates and uses AI to analyze the data to get insights from the data. And when we talk about this data engineer, he is a combination of both these people. He is in, and that's why I put it in between because he does link with both the people. Now let's understand it how he's been linked with these two people over here. So let's understand a very basic case study. And I want you guys to be very active over here because I'm going to be asking you questions. So please answer it over here. Now let's take a very simple example of a banking system. I hope everyone knows about the banks, right? Now we are taking a very simple example of a banking system. So what do you think? Which all kind of data a bank stores? What kind of data a bank usually takes from customers from anywhere? What all kind of data do they have? Can anyone tell me? Now this example will also clear all the different types of jargons which we use in data engineering. So whenever you heard about data engineering and a specific jargon, a specific technical word, you'll be having a basic good idea of what that exactly is, right? So okay, first is transactional data, right? A bank can have a transactional data, right? Transaction data. You can ping me in the chat for now. If you are not able to unmute, we'll allow you. Okay, customers data, right? Customers data, user details of customer data, transaction data. What else? What all information do they have? Aadhaar, PAN, KYC updates, right? Now, which kind of information does that Aadhaar have? Now, Aadhaar is generally taken in the form of images also, like a photo state, right? Now, that photo would be more like a images. That data would be called as the images, right? Which all kind of information does they have? Now, images can have Aadhaar signatures. Uh, Sometimes they do take like thumbprint as well, right? So all these go into the same, right? What else? Globe data. Can you tell you again this? What is this globe you're referring to? Mandar. Consider a bank not just a branch, but as a whole system. I'm talking about. It's a blob, not globe. It's a blob, Mandar. BLOB. Yeah, the images goes in a blob structure, which is more like an unstructured data. What else? What other kind of data can they have? They have customer information, they have transactional information. What else do they have? Now, do we see the advertisements of the bank? Do we see advertisements from the bank? Right? So they do have a advertising data as well, which is generally considered in the form of APIs. The data coming from an API over here. What else? They do have some text files, right, in the form of forms or all those parts. So text files, PDF files, right? So all these different types of data do they have? Let's consider with these particular parts over here. Now here, when you talk about this transaction data, whenever we are making a transaction, it can be easily stored in the form of table, right? We can store this kind of data in the form of tables, right? Now, whenever we talk about a data which can be in a structured form or which can be converted in the form of tables, is what we call it as a data storage as SQL data. Okay, I'm just giving a very general name over here. We're not going very much details. So that is one of the data source which we are talking about, which is a SQL based databases. Right. So these are the data sources I will be talking about. So these are the forms of data. And in which kind of data do we consider? This is generally refers to as structured data. Right. Now this one is what we call it as a this one, or we can just add, let's say API as well. Now this one is more like a structured and semi-structured data, unstructured and semi-structured data. Unstructured and unstructured data, let's say, right? And this one generally we refer to as flat files. Okay, this one we generally refer to as flat files, right? Now these are the basic structures some of the very basic structures of data we have. And to store these particular data, we have different types of data sources. Okay, here we use some different types of data sources as well. Scroll it up. Now, to handle these kind of data, we have different types. Now, these are the forms of data. Then we have is data sources. Now, data sources is where we are storing these data, or you can also call it as a databases, right? Where we are storing all these kind of different kind of data which is coming in. Everything has been happening over here. So all this structured data can be handled by the SQL data. On the unstructured data can be handled by a NoSQL databases, right? A NoSQL databases. Then to handle these text files, PDF files, we can have a blob storage. And to go with the API, now we can have a direct API source as well. So generally, these are referred to as a different kind of data sources from where we can store a data. So whenever you're making a transaction, what is happening? Now these are the data sources, right? So whenever you're making a transaction in your phone, what happens? Your transaction comes here, verifies your customer detail, verifies all the amount details, transaction detail, and go back over here. So it's a to and fro motion which is happening, which is online happening over here. Similarly, if you're logging into your mobile app, right, banking app, if you're logging into this and you are making some UPI, so you are taking a scanner image, right? We are going to Google Pay, we are making a scanner image. So that kind of images, that kind of all the things have been generally handled in this kind of NoSQL databases. Okay. So we are using these kind of NoSQL databases, which is again a to and fro motion of transactional data, transaction of data which is happening. Then we have a bank is running some advertisements, right? Advertisement on running on Facebook, on Google, on TV, on many other places, right? And whenever you click on those websites, you instantly get a call on your phone, message on your phone, and all those kind of things, right? Now, how that is happening? That is all has been happening with the help of APIs. Now, we will be discussing all of these parts in very much detail as we're moving forward. But these are what we call it as the APIs because it's a third party part. Now, these two kind of data, these two types of data can be managed in the internal part of the banking system. But the API, because advertisements are running on a third party apps, Facebook, Instagram, Google, wherever, right? A news application, news website, right? So wherever they are running, they are sending, they're accessing a data from the third party. And to make that happen, we use the APIs. We are using an API of Facebook to get a data of our own banking system. Right? So that is why we referred it to a different data source. Then we have a PDF and text files, which has been stored, which has been taken by from the customers in the branches. They are filling up the forms. They are storing it. Right? You're giving a thumbprint, more like thumbprints. You're giving photo sets of Aadhaar card, PAN card, loan application, some credit card request, or any kind of request. Wherever you're filling any kind of forms, right? Everything is stored in these kind of flat files, which is stored in this blob storage, right? So this is how you're utilizing all these different data sources. Clear, everyone? Any question up to this part? If anyone have? Encryption is more like a different story, right? That's a firewall systems which have been more handled by the database administrators or the backend part. That's not our part. Right now, from here, like here the transaction which have been happening between the customer and the user database, that is not our case. We are not working on that, but the data collection part has been done by the backend people, by the DBA people, by the DevOps people. All these things are being managed by them. From here onwards, from this particular stage onwards, the data engineering work starts. The encryption of data, everything has been handled and managed by those DBA and those backend people over there. Okay. And that is why, because that transaction is going on, right? You are making, like, a lot of people are making online transactions, right? Every minute, every hour, we are making a lot of transactions, right? Similarly, a lot of advertisement is running. A lot of people are clicking on that advertisements. lot of people are opening up their bank accounts, filling out any kind of forms and everything, right? Now, everything that is what we call it as a OLTP transactions. O- O- OLTP. Now, what is this OLTP? That's an online transactional processing. So whenever you are handling the transactional data, like any kind of transaction, a transaction over is not just about the amount, it is any kind of data transformation which is happening, any kind of data traveling, transfer is happening, right? As we seen, you are making a lot of transaction, new customers are logging into their or logging into their account. If they're putting any kind of image, scanner, anything, the API from running from advertisements, PDF text file can be any kind of form which you're filling. So that is the OLTP part, which is not being taken care by us as a data engineer. That is not our part. Our part starts from here onwards when we move in this particular direction. That has been done all by the software developers, engineers, all those people. That has been taken care by those people. Now, from here, because that is a general thing which has been happening, which is a business purpose, which is going on. But as a data field, as a people in this data engineering field, in this data field, our job is to get a data, to get the insights from the data. That is our job, right? This is what we have discussed over here, right? When we are entering into any of the field, data engineer, analyst, data scientist, any of the field, main purpose is to get a data and analyze it, get some useful insights. When you talk about this particular part, when we are talking about this OLTP transactions, that is where we are not making anything. That has been taken care as a business purpose. A business, a bank is making their customers more active and everything. That is their part. Now our part starts, which refers to the OLAP, where we refer to as OLAP. Now, what is this OLAP? It's an online analytical processing. The data you have stored in this data sources, the data which you have stored over here, now to process it for the analytical purpose, that is where our job starts. Okay, that is where our job starts. Now, how we are doing? Now, here we come into the concepts of data warehouses. Now, the first form we have is data warehouse. That is our first jargon. Now, this is another first analytic technical word which we talk about in the form of, in the case of data engineering. And the second one we have is data lakes. Okay. Now, what is this data warehouse and data lake? Let's understand it again. Now, if we take a simple example of a warehouse, now what do we mean by the term as warehouse only? Forget about the data part. What is the warehouse? If we talk about, what do we understand by the term as warehouse? Storage space, a structured storage space. Generally, whenever we talk about a warehouse, it's more like a structured storage space. Whenever you go to a warehouse, you know what things are lying in which place, at what place, everything. You have a very structured format, and that is what we have the data warehouse. Now here you can see there are different kind of data sources, and to analyze all the data, because as we said, this is more like a table form of data. This is unstructured data which is not in the form of table. You cannot easily manage it. You cannot structure it. Then we have API, which is again in a very different structure. Blob storage is again in a different structure. To keep all of them in a structured format so that we can analyze it better, that is where this data warehouses come into play. That is where this term as data warehouse comes into play, so that you can get all the data. You can put all the data over here, right? You can pass all the data over here so that there's a central repository available which can analyze, which can help. Now here we have data analyst generally happening over here. That is where we have multiple data analyst people. Let's mark it as BI tools. That is where we are having a BI tools. Now, BI is what we refer to as business intelligence. BI refers to a business intelligence tool, a tool which helps you do the intelligence, do the insights, get the insights from the data. So, data warehouse is a form of storage which we are using for the analytical purpose only. And the process of getting a data from a OLTP part, from a transaction going data sources to a analytical processing unit, is what we call it as a ETL. Is what we call it as a ETL job. ETL refers to extract, transform, and load. So we are extracting the data from different sources, transforming it so that all become in a single structure, which can be easily managed to analyze, and then loading it into a data warehouse. That is what we refer to as ETL job. Clear, everyone? Any question up to this part, if anyone have? Is it clear with everyone? Yes, no? Oh, okay. If you guys have any question, do ping in the chat itself. Okay. Now that is what we have as a data warehouse. Now coming to the data lakes. Now what is this data lake then? Now what happens, and data lakes are generally introduced when you're dealing with a big data. Now we talk about data, which is a useful information in any form. That is what we refer to as data. But what is the big data now? Because generally when you talk about data lakes, that is where the big data technology or big data terminology comes into play. So what is this data lake, big data over here? So let's talk about the term as big data. Because big data is something which we also deal with as a data engineers. Because when you talk about big data, a big data is a data which refers to 5 V's. It is generally defined by 5 V's. Now, what is this 5V? First is volume, that you are dealing with massive amount of data. Now, that massive amount is what I can refer to as, if I talk about a national stock exchange, like NSE, National Stock Exchange, stock market, that generates around 500 GB of data every day. Right? If you talk about YouTube, now YouTube is generating 200 TB of data every day. Right? Now that is what we call it as a massive amount of data, zettabytes of data. That is what we refer to as big data. So that is what the first V stands for, volume. Second is velocity. How much speed are you generating a data? As we said, we are generating 500 GB of data every day, which means in a stock, there's a huge amount of data available. That is the volume. But 500 GB is every day, which has been accumulating over there. That is the velocity. How much speed, how much volume are you generating every moment? That is the velocity. Thirdly, we have is the value. That the information which we are generating does consist of some valuable insights. It has some useful information in it. That is what we refer to as value. Right. Fourth one we have is veracity. That the data which we are generating, consists of, is it a valid data or not? Is it coming from a genuine source or not? That is what we refer to as veracity. And finally, the fifth one we have is variety. Like as we discussed just now, we are getting a data in multiple forms. It can be transaction data, it can be customer data, it can be API data, it can be images, it can be video, it can be audio files, it can be anything, right? That is a variety of data which you are accumulating. So whenever you're dealing with these or 5Vs, or whenever you're dealing with a big data, that is where this data lakes come in. Reason being, why we are working with a data lakes than a data warehouse. As you see, here we are working with the ETL part. Now, when you're doing extraction of that huge amount of data, transformation, this particular step is not possible on the spot. So what we do is, when extracting these variety of data from multiple data sources, that is where what we are doing is, rather than doing an ETL, we perform a ELT job. Extract, load it, and then think of transformation. And that is where the data lakes comes into play. So it's like a lake where you can just keep on pouring anything. Any kind of data, whatever it is, just keep on pouring over there. Just keep on putting any kind of data in that lake, in that open space, just keep on putting any kind of data. And that is why we call it the data lakes. It's a lake of data in which you can just pour any data. You don't have to worry about transformation. After loading, you do the transformation. So first you get all the data into this data lake and then start cleaning up the data, doing transformation and everything. Is it clear with everyone? And for this particular data lake example, very simple example is if you guys have used credit cards. Now, whenever you use a credit card, and suppose if you have a 1 lakh rupees credit card, and what happens on a first month you spend 2,000 rupees, next month you spend 3,000, and third month you all of a sudden spend 90,000 in one transaction. Now, what will happen? You'll instantly get a call on your phone that have you made that transaction to confirm if it's a fraud or a non-fraud call or non-fraud transaction. They instantly make a call to confirm that whether you have the one who made this 90,000 transaction or not. If yes, then only the transaction processes. If you said no, it will be stopped over there itself. Now, how is that happening? Obviously, that's not possible that a human is sitting behind your credit card who's tracking all your information. That's not possible. That is where these data lakes come to play, and many streaming services, because data lakes include data streaming as well, because we are streaming a lot of data over here. And that is one of the disadvantage of working with this data warehouses, because data warehouse and data lakes both can work with big data. But the only difference is when you're dealing with a data warehouse, you cannot work with the updated data. You cannot work with the streaming data. And that is where the data lakes come into play. You can work and analyze with the streaming data as well. So the added advantage which you get in this data lake is very huge amount of storage space, very huge storage space. So if your data is very, very big, that is when you choose to go with the data lakes. And if you're dealing with the streaming data, like if you take a very good example of a cricket match, I believe everyone have seen the cricket match, right? IPLs are going on right now. I believe everyone watches them. Yes or no? Do we watch IPLs or any sports? Any sports, whichever you like. All watches it. I'm
Yes,
getting
sir.
one response only, one or two responses. What about others? What about others? I'm just getting two people response. Is it going too boring? Okay.
No,
So
sir.
whenever we talk about streaming part, what happens is, so you guys have seen the match, right? Now in the IPL match or in any cricket match or sports event, you can see they are putting a lot of graphics on the ground as well. Like Pepsi ads are going on, Coca-Cola ads are going on. They're showing the scoreboards over there. When a player is throwing a ball, they're able to show how the trajectory is going to go for. Right? They can show you instantly how the trajectory or projectile will go. How will it be a six or not? They're able to analyze the sound of the things. They're able to analyze a lot of things on the go, on the streaming part itself. Right. That is where the streaming part comes into play, because they are loading, they are recording a lot of amount of data. Right. There are a lot of cameras which has been running around to work with all those data, to work with all the cameras and to see how the projectile will go, to do all the analytics on the go, on the streaming part. That is where these data lakes are coming into play. And that is where whenever you watch a cricket match in the stadium and whenever you watch a cricket match in your home, there's a 8 minute delay, 5 to 8 minutes of delay, which happens from recording there and sending a data to you guys, because there's an inbuilt process which is doing the streaming part also, which is doing the analytical part also. That is why there is a delay, which is parallel branches. One is streaming the data directly to you, another one is analyzing and showing you the way they want to present you, because in the field there are a lot of cameras are going on. Which one to show you when? That is when been decided by the AI part itself, not a human who's deciding which part to show. Like instantly, when a bowler throws a ball, you get a six. A camera is tracking that also, and they are showing the people taking a run. Players are taking a run as well. How they are switching in between everything. That is all been handled by the AI nowadays to make the match more interesting, to make it more interesting for users. That is how they are dealing with it. So that is where this data lakes come into play. And to work with all those AI part, that is where a data scientist comes into play. Now here, to as I mentioned, whenever we talk about data analyst, he is the person who is dealing with the BI tools. So BI tools have been managed by the data analyst. Generally, a person who is using a BI tool to analyze the data to get some insights from the data is the data analyst. And when we talk about data scientist, he is the person who is making AI to analyze the data further, making the AI so efficient that who can work with the data itself. That is the data scientist person. And all this part which we have just not talked about, this is the part which is managed by the data engineers. These are the parts which is managed by the data engineers with us. And that is how all the things have been happening. Now, there are many terminologies which you might have heard about if you have heard about the data engineering, such as Kafka, Sparks, maybe Snowflake, right? So these are some of the terminologies, and also about the cloud services such as Azure, AWS, and GCP. So you might have heard about these terms. Now, these are the technologies which we are using, which a data engineer is using to make it happen, to make everything happen in the go. That is how a data engineering is working out. Clear, everyone? Any questions so far, if anyone have? Sorry, I'm not able to hear you, Ajay.
Hello, sir. What about the Hive and the Hadoop which is MongoDB?
Sorry, Hadoop what?
Hive, Hadoop, and MongoDB all about.
Okay. So MongoDB is a NoSQL database. Okay, it's a type of a NoSQL database. So when you talk about a NoSQL database, NoSQL is a general term. MongoDB is one of the type of NoSQL database, whereas Hadoop is more like a data lake. It's the data lake which we refer to. Data lake is a general term, whereas Hadoop is the technology which is making this data lake happen. So Hadoop is a data lake which we use to store any kind of data over there.
Okay. And Hive, Hive, will- Hive, sir.
Hive. Okay. So when you talk about the Hive, now here, as I mentioned, a term as Sparks, right? Now Sparks, Hive, Sparks, Hive over here also, Hive, Impala, and there are many more as well. Now these are all the tools which you use to transform the data. Right? That is not the loading part. That is more about the transformation part. So when you want to analyze the data, when a data has been stored in the Hadoop, on top of it, you can run a Hive, you can run a Sparks, whichever we want. On top of the Hadoop, we run the Hive or Sparks or any other tools and technologies as well. So these are more like a tools which are using to transform the data, to clean it up and everything. That is where we are using this Hive part. So once the data has been extracted and loading into the data lake, that is where on top of it, on top of that, we are using a Hive or Sparks to do all the kind of analytics, to do all the kind of ML models, to do anything whichever you want to do, analyze or to transform or to do anything on top of that data, to utilize the data basically. That is where we have is the Hive.
Okay.
Any other question if anyone have?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So, what is the role of Python over here?
What is the role of
Python.
Python? Okay. So Python and SQL is two languages which we are going to be studying, and there's another one as command prompt or basically like command line interface. That is also we'll be learning about the basics. The Python is used now here when you talk about these SQL part. That is where the SQL comes into place. It's more like a basic. If I say it's a language of data, to work with the data, you need SQL. Right? But when you talk about the analytical part, when we want to analyze the data, when we want to do a lot of cleaning, when we want to do a lot of intense kind of jobs, that is where the Python comes into play. So when you talk about the Sparks, which I have talked about over here, right? Now the Sparks is generally we go with the PySparks. Now Sparks by default is written in a Scala. The language which you use, which is a by default language for Sparks, is a Scala. But Spark support all the languages such as Scala, R, Python and SQL as well. But Python is more easy to understand, to work with. That is why we learn about the Python also. Because Python is a more like a very generalized language to work if you want to implement any kind of modeling part, if you want to create any kind of analytics, everything. That is why we tend to go to Python part.
কে হালিমা খালা
6-month internship. Can you explain? Can you tell me again the question? I didn't get your 6-month internship in this domain. So
one thing, sir, it was mentioned that you provide the sixth project. Okay, you do the sixth
sorry,
project. It is mentioned
6
that
what?
during this course, sixth project you will do. Hello.
Yes. So 6 projects is more. 6 projects will be more like one will be both like for each and everything. Like if you're dealing with the BI part, like we will be learning. Okay, talking about the course also. So we will be covering all these parts. That how do we work with the SQL? Okay, how do we work with the NoSQL databases, which includes MongoDB. That is the one which we cover over here. Here we'll be learning about the MySQL. Just rewrite this all. So when you talk about the term as like what we are gonna study over here, so we'll be learning about the MySQL, MongoDB, right, data warehouse. That is also where I'm studying data lakes, Hadoops. We'll be also studying how to perform ETL or ELT jobs. That is also we'll be studying over here. And along with that, we'll be learning it based on the Azure cloud platform. Everything is we'll try to create all this. We'll try to set up the data warehouse, data lakes, everything in this Azure platform. Now coming to the projects part, how we'll be doing the projects over here. The projects will be more based on individual individual palettes also, and a combination product also. So there'll be like 2 to 3 combination projects, which we'll be using, where we'll be working with the Azure part, all the streaming part as well. Like how do you set up everything, like the structure which we talked about, how do you set up everything over here in the practical aspects, how you make live streaming happen, everything. So that would be like 2 to 3 projects will be done for these things. And there'll be 3 individual smaller projects, which we will be doing for individual technology over here. That is how we'll be covering all those projects.
Hello, sir. Sir, are we covering only the basics about all these, or we go through the entire syllabus?
Yes, we will be going inside them also, like no, not like with the overview, because with the overview you will not get something anything. And when you're moving with the data part, you need to know a good structure, good detail about each and everything. So we'll try to cover with the more practical aspects. Like I'll not be going with a very much of theory part. We'll be more looking at how do we implement them, how do these things been operated with a very basic theory to have a basic idea of things, how things are working out. Then we'll directly jump to the practical part. That is how we'll be doing over here.
Sir, one thing, sir. Can you cover the like how we do the big data testing?
Sorry, how big?
Big data testing.
Big data testing. I didn't get you. Come again. Come again. Say again, Abhimanyu. And is it clear with your question, Neha?
Yes, sir. Sir, do we get like more frequent question which is asked during interviews?
Yes,
For
as
data?
we will be studying them, whenever we'll encounter a particular topic, I'll be giving some basic questions, like these are the general questions which generally been asked in the interview perspective as well, side by side as we'll be moving forward.
Hello. Sorry, sir.
Yes.
I was not audible. I was asking.
You're not clear, Abhimanyu. So yes, Manda, we do provide a certificate for the 6-month internship so that you
Hello,
get
sir.
a jump start in your job part. Yes, Abhimanyu, go on.
Is it audible, sir?
Your
Yeah.
voice is breaking a lot. I'm not able to hear you.
Sir, why Azure in particular? Like, is the industry going forward with Azure or AWS? Which one we need to concentrate for the
Okay.
data engineer part?
So here, how we will be doing over here, if you have seen the course outline, how we have planned it, will be more focused for the Azure part, but it's not like we'll not touch the AWS. We'll be going with the basics of AWS also. Because when you talk about data warehouse, let's say, just one example I'm giving. Now, in the Azure part, we have a data warehouse as the service which we call it as Azure Synapse. That is what we have as a Azure data warehouse in the Azure platform. Similarly, we have a Redshift in AWS. Right? The working scenario is the same for both of them. It's just that the service has been changing in both the scenario over here. So we'll be having a briefing of AWS part, but we'll be learning the environment building project part, majorly with the Azure, but we'll be having a briefing about the AWS as well, so that you have a both idea of how things have been working out. We'll do a basic practice over in the AWS part as well, so don't worry on that part. Okay. So both these parts will be taken care, but we'll more focus on Azure. Now coming to your question that whether companies are moving to the Azure, so it goes. I'll not say like specifically yes, but why I would say yes over here. So if you know about the basic history of these three cloud services, AWS is the first one which arrived, then Azure, and then the GCP. Now there are many more now as well. But when AWS comes into play, that time data domain was not that in high demand, not that very high in piece. But software engineering, computer science is very high. So AWS made their services more reliable for those particular people, right? For those all these people as software engineering development domain. But when Azure arrived in the market, what happened? Because AWS have captured all the market already. So Azure and that time data field also started emerging. That is why Azure started making their services more efficient for these data field. And that is why company prefer going with the Azure part if until unless they have not already opted for AWS. So companies are moving to the Azure part because they are creating better services for Azure for the data services over here. And that is why we are moving to this Azure platform right now.
Sir,
Yes.
one thing. Are we covering the big data testing in this course?
Which testing?
Big data testing.
Big data testing as like the transactional part which you are talking about.
No, big data testing, sir, like ETL testing and big data
Yeah,
testing for
ETL
that.
testing, obviously, we will be creating the ETLs and we will be testing them out, of course.
Like the validation and count and all this whatever.
Yeah, processing we'll be seeing about like how the processing it will be using, how the resources it is consuming, everything we'll be seeing over there when we will be creating these ETL parts. That is a part of ETL itself, the testing of ETL that are they working properly or not.
And for the big data,
Sorry,
for the big data,
how?
for big
Debugging.
data.
Sorry, come again. How?
For the big data, sir, we will cover the big data testing also.
Big data is, like, see, big data is what we have said. Big data is nothing but a data in a very huge volume. Right. So obviously we cannot work with a very huge volume because we cannot create a very huge volume in our scenario. But yes, we will be working with a data which is comparatively bigger in size so that you have a real feel of how things have been implemented. So we'll try to cover a piece
So
of
idea
big
you
data,
have
but definitely
the
in our free resources, we cannot have very big data like not more than 2 to 3 GBs.
focus, but we should also know about the how to test the big data.
So see, big data is a terminology, as I mentioned, which includes 5 Vs. That is what we call it as a big data, right? If you're working with a 1 GB file, that similarly goes with a 100 GB file as well, right? But when you talk about resources, like when you start working with the cloud platforms, that is where you have a limitation of with the free accounts. That goes maximum to the 5 to 10 GBs max you can work with in the free account. Because after that, they start charging you for each GB which you are using. Every kind of GB memory space which you are consuming, they'll start charging you based on that. And that will be like, if it's a company part, obviously that's a good thing. But over here, to keep things in a under control, so that's why we'll be going with this bigger files, but obviously within the limits of the free accounts which are available. But with that, you will be obviously get a good glimpse of how things have been working in the real time scenario.
Hi,
Clear,
Sai.
everyone? Yes.
What skills required for the big data role, big data
Big data.
engineer role?
See, data engineer, when you talk about data engineers, now big data engineers, big data architects, data engineers, sometimes they also call it big data analytics. So everything comes into this big data engineering itself. So when I talk about these three terms, now they are a more generalized terms. Okay, it's not like data engineer is just a data engineer. It does include big data architect, big data engineer, right? They includes the both the things, right? Big data engineer, big data architects, okay, big data architects, big data analytics also. Some people do say it as a big data analytics. So these are just the terminology. Similarly, if you talk about data scientists, we have ML ops, right? ML engineers. So they are majorly, when we talk about these particular parts, so they are more intense towards the slight change in the technological part, but overall structure goes the same way. Similarly, when we talk about data analyst, similarly, we do have a business analyst, right? Technical analyst. These are nothing but in the same domain which they go with. The tools and technologies which they need goes the same way. Similarly, when you talk about data engineers, big data engineers are big data architects, big data analytics, data architects. So all goes into this domain of this data engineering only. That is why I generalize all the terms in three fields only.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, for joining this course, we need any technical background like CSIT, computer.
No, not at all. We'll be going with the very basics. So if you have a basic understanding of Python or SQL, that will be an added advantage for you. If not, we'll be doing with the scratch only. So don't worry on that case.
Okay, okay.
Anything else if anyone have?
As what is our role, sir?
Sorry, your voice is breaking up, Manu.
As a big data engineer, what will be our role?
As a big data engineer, what would be? Can you tell again, Abhimanyu?
Hi Sahil, which
Yes.
ETL tool are we going to use?
So here we'll be more going with the Azure Data Factory. As I mentioned, we'll more focus for the Azure services. So we'll be using that. And for this, we'll be using a data factory over here as the initial part. But also we'll be seeing how the AWS Glue also works. Right. So these are the two tools which will be working with the ETL part. We can do the same ETL in the data warehouse as well, like Synapse also.
Apart from cloud ETL tools, are we going to use Airflow or anything like
Yes, we will be going with the Airflow and Kafka also, apart from these Azure based. So Airflow and Kafka are the two which we are going to use over here.
Okay.
Any other question if anyone have?
As a big data engineer, what is our role in the company?
Can you ping me in the chat, please? I'm not able to hear you clearly. Abhimanyu.
Sir, I am asking that as a data engineer, what will be our roles and responsibilities?
Okay. So as a data engineer, your main role and job is to get transaction data, keep this ETL intact, that they are extracting the data effectively without putting a lot of pressure on these data sources, because on the data sources, there already a customer transaction data is happening. So as a data engineer, first job is that you are extracting the data without affecting these particular online transaction which is happening. That should not get affected anyhow. That is the first priority. Like you have to extract the data efficiently. That is the first part. Second part is to manage all these data lakes and the data warehouses. Third part is do companies do ask for BI tools and DSF this ML part as well. And that is why we have also added the BI tools and the ML part in this particular data engineering. Because when we set up all the structure over here, that is where the data engineering jobs works. Because setting up all these architecture and structure keeping like that is the first kind of job. Second kind of job is like many companies now wants to shift into this big data technologies. Right? The data has been expanding and all those things. So they are working on transferring their regular structure to the big data technologies, and that data migration part is also one of the case that based on the client requirement, what kind of requirement they have, what kind of future expansion they are looking at, you make a scalable system, scalable big data architecture for them. That is the second kind of job role. Third kind of job role is more like deploying different kind of ML services onto the cloud platform, so that on the go you can get all, like as we taken one example of credit card. So on the go, we have implemented an ML model which can keep on notifying if any kind of transaction which is happening is a fraud transaction. Their ML model is working with that part. A human is not implementing over there. There's an ML model which we have implemented, which will be analyzing all the transactions which are happening. And if it detects something, some particular transaction as a fraud transaction, it will directly notify the bank to take some kind of action over there.
One thing, sir, as a ETL, in the ETL mechanic, there was a ETL developer who is doing all the transformation and creating the pipeline. Are you have to do the same job like in the as a data engineer?
Exactly, definitely. So how these things, okay, do not get misled by these job terminologies. Reason being, it's purely based on the company requirements, right? So if you talk about tier 3 company, there's a data engineer only who is doing the data analyst job, who is doing the data scientist job and everything. When you move to a slightly bigger company, that is where they start to differentiate everyone. Right. So there they might be having a data engineer and a data scientist. Or they are hiring two kind of people. When you move to even bigger company, they start to even differentiate them, like data engineer, data scientist, and this. Even more data analyst, data scientist, so data analyst and business analyst. Then you have in the data engineering field, because you can see there are a lot of things happen in the data engineering. So they are having a full-fledged DBA, ETL part, data warehouse managers, data architectures, everything. So they have individual parts for everyone. That is how they have been making the changes. So it's purely based on the company to company, how specific requirement do they have. Yes, Mandar will be able to deploy systems in our laptop in the over here itself. We'll be setting up the Kafka, we'll be setting up the Hadoop structure, everything will be setting up in our system itself.
Hello, am I audible? Sunny?
Yes.
Just wanted to know the basic difference between big data developer and big data admin and data engineer.
So if you go with like for this, I would recommend, because they are, see, as I just now mentioned, each individual parts keeps on with the company to company, the values of position or specific job role keeps on updating. Like they are going more into the specifics. A big data admin most probably is going to be, because I have, frankly speaking, big data admin is I have no idea. Coming to the other two, yes, I can tell you. But big data admin is more like what I'm expecting is more like who's just overseeing the things. He's not be like a fresher for sure. I believing. Definitely he'll not be going to a fresher part over there. He'll be a very good experienced person who's be administrating all the structure which a people on a junior positions have been making over. That is how that particular part is. And tell me about the other two also. Which one you are talking about?
Developer.
Okay, big data developer is like the same, which we have just now seen to create those ETL structures, because ETL includes a lot of tools. Okay, right now we have seen a very generic scenario, but there are a lot of tools have been happening over there. Right. So that is where the big data developers come into play, which is developing all those products and services, which is making things happen in this big data technologies.
All right, thank you.
Most welcome. Okay, everyone. Any other question if anyone have, or else we are done for today.
Everyone, please fill the attendance form. And if you have any queries related to the training, you can connect with our number 7757 or 7822. Okay, that is available in chat option. And we only have 3 sheets are available in our paid training. So from tomorrow, we are not providing a public link to everyone. Only paid student will be there. Thank you. Aishwarya is asking what is the procedure for enrollment. Aishwarya, you can connect with the given below number. Okay, I have provided the number. Anyone having any doubts?
Is the training tomorrow will be the same time?
Yeah, tomorrow will be the same time.
Okay.
But from tomorrow, we have only paid students are there.
Okay.
Hi. Am I audible?
So the cost of the program and the timing should we discuss on the WhatsApp number that you have provided?
Host Harish. You there?
Those who have having any doubts, they can call on these numbers. Okay, they will help you with the admission process, everything.
I just wanted to know, is there any after job support type thing?
Yes, we will help you with the resume preparation. We have a HR team is available. Along with that, we will help you in interview calls also, and we will means update your LinkedIn and Naukri profile. And we have a means like interview courses available for data engineering, big data, Hadoop. So for that that interview course we will provide free of cost. And we are
Thanks
having
for that.
a discount till tomorrow 6 p.m. Till tomorrow
Okay,
7 p.m. before the session start. You can enroll till tomorrow 7 p.m.
thanks for that info. But I just wanted to know after job support because we will be new for the job role, right?
Yes.
After getting the job.
Yeah, we
Is
have
there
a
anything
support
like
team.
that?
Yes, supporting is available. If you are facing any issue now, we will help you with that.
Okay. Is it separate table thing?
No, no.
All right. Thank you.
Please fill the attendance form, everyone. Prashant is asking that this is a practically based training. Yes, this is a practical based training. All training will be taken by Sahil sir, and it is a practical based training. Yes, we will take your installation and everything. We have a dedicated support team is available. Morning 8 to in the night 8, 12 hours of support is will be provided from our end. Okay. So those who are having any doubt, they can call or ping me on WhatsApp. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil. Thanks, all.